welcome, Hannah and Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
No, well, thank you for being here. And shall we start by, I guess, just introducing yourselves and a little bit about your backgrounds?
Yes, I'm happy to start if you wish.
Yes, go for it, Hannah.
Perfect. Yeah, so hi everyone. My name's Hannah Bevan. I'm the Diversity and Inclusion Lead here at BBC Cymru Wales. I guess just a bit about me and my journey. So I'm a South Wales Valleys born girl from a little town called Merthyr Tydfil. I went to a local high school. I guess when I was reflecting actually ahead of the session around all the things that I wanted to be when I was younger. And I went through a phase of wanting to be a vet, I wanted to be a teacher, and I guess that's where I finished out at actually leaving school, was wanting to be a PE teacher. I went on to university to study sports science initially, with the view that would get me onto my PGCE to do teaching. And within my first few months, I very quickly realised that actually being a PE teacher, I would probably spend half my time asking kids why they've not got their PE kit as opposed to teaching PE itself. So I was left fortunate actually to be able to transition my courses from sports science to sports development, and just took a real passion for people really from the very start. And after upon leaving university, I was fortunate to build on a bit of part-time work that I had with the national governing body in field hockey called Hockey Wales. So move from part-time to full-time there, and spent 8 years actually of, I guess, the beginning of my career there. And I always say to people now, how many times in your lifetime do you ever get asked what you want to be when you grow up? And if I'm honest, like I could probably still ask myself that now, and I still don't know. I'm on a really, I guess, positive step in my career at the moment here, BBC Cymru Wales. I've been here for 3 years, and I made the move because one, I got bored and I don't feel like I could give much more to my old organisation. And I think that's always good to acknowledge, that if you can't give anything more, anything different, any fresh perspective, then for you and the organisation, it's the right time to move on. But I still feel like, every day I'm able to give a little bit more here. So still very much loving what I do day to day. And I guess I've always the big thing for me is acknowledging along my journey that I have to be in a job but I can see impact. I'm an overthinker. I'm very anxious. I need to have reassurance, and the impact in my work gives me that reassurance. So I think, for a bit of a top tip for people before we go into questions is that is fine to acknowledge that of what you want from a job, based on who you are, because I think that, if you spend a long time sort of trying to conform to what another organisation wants for you, then you probably won't enjoy that experience. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight into me, and I'm sure through questions we'll dig a little bit deeper, but I will pass on to Sarah to introduce herself.
No, thanks, Hannah. And sorry, Sarah, before we just move on to your journey, Hannah, what did you ever think about the BBC when you were younger, or was that just not even an option?
Definitely not even an option for me. Not in like I didn't think of the BBC and go, I could never work there. But I guess it was just never one of my options. And I think that was probably based on the fact that I just was so focused on teaching, I guess, at that point. But also when we see this day to day, it's always what we see. So what I saw was news presenters, what I saw was, sports commentators, those type of things. And that was just never, I guess, an option for me. And this is what we, Sarah and I try and do amongst our work, is around this far, far more than that. And actually, when I talk to a lot of colleges, and we talk about the untapped creatives. So I wouldn't really consider myself super creative, but I know I have value to add. But because I've not done this typical creative pathway in, is that actually I would consider myself one of those untapped creatives, because it's gone sort of like a business people-based route. So yeah, I didn't consider BBC as an option. And then even I think when I applied for this job, I was so focused on the job itself that people around me were like, oh my goodness, BBC, that's amazing. And then I guess it sunk in quite a bit, and every day, consider myself super grateful to be where I am.
No, thank you for that honesty. Yeah, I feel like that's really nice, good to hear. And yeah, I think sometimes we need to change those labels of what we think, certain companies are. Moving on, yes, Sarah, tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah, bore da, everyone. Good morning. It's lovely to be with you. So, my name's Sarah Last. I'm the head of HR for BBC Wales. Like Hannah, I grew up in a South Wales Valley, but the Neath Valley rather than the Merthyr Valley there. Grew up in a working class family in Port Talbot in South Wales. My dad was a steelworker. My mum kind of worked in various part-time jobs. I wish I could tell you otherwise, but I didn't really start out with a career plan, if I'm being honest. Um, I was the first person in my family to go to university, and I think I completely surprised my parents when I came home one day and said, "Oh, I'd like to do a Welsh degree." And having never spoken Welsh before, I didn't go to Welsh school, nobody in my family spoke Welsh. I think they thought I was a little bit what was going on with me, but I proved them, I did it. And I knew early on that I was never going to leave Wales. I was never going to be one of those people who went to London to find, I was always going to be a home bird. And I did that. I actually stayed at home when I went to university to try and cut down costs, etc. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of where I started off. And then once I graduated, I was a bit like, okay, so what do I do now? I genuinely had no idea what to do. And because I'd learned Welsh, I found a job as as a bilingual administrator for a charity, the British Lung Foundation, and I loved that job. I loved having something with a purpose, something with an impact, helping people, doing events, meeting people. And then from there, I kind of knew I kind of outgrown that job after after a year or so, and then I went to work for a high street recruitment agency. Didn't really know anything about recruitment, but it was working with people. So I thought, well, I'm sure I could do this. So I gave that a go, and again, I loved that, but there were parts that I also really hated. Like I hated making sales calls. I hated having to sell things to people. And I think sometimes it's good to try things so you realize what you don't like as well in a job. So that really taught me quite a lot around kind of the bits that I liked about a job and I didn't like, but I also got to go out and meet companies. I did a lot of kind of industrial and mechanical and working with manufacturing companies, and I just loved going in, meeting people, going on the line and chatting to people. So that was kind of where I kind of cut my teeth really in terms of HR, was in recruitment. And then I kind of hit a point where, oh my gosh, I was kind of faced with a potential redundancy scenario, and I thought, right, okay, what can I do here? So I literally got my bag and walked around other recruitment agencies. I thought, well, I'd just do what I know. So I walked around and had my CV with me. Any jobs going? Kind of what you've got going available. And it just, by stroke of luck, I walked into one recruitment agency. They just had a job come in for an internal recruiter for the BBC. And I just went, sorry. And I also said, but that's in Cardiff and I live in Neath in South Wales. And it's only really 40 minutes down the motorway, but it was a long way for me. But I went for the interview, got the job. And kind of here I am 18 years later. I say I have left in between though, and gone to work for a career service in our local in University of South Wales, so one of the universities up the road. Again, loved that. And I think, throughout my career, what I've kind of realised and what I really need is to work with people and to work with an organisation that has a purpose. And that's something that I kind of, really always feel I need in my career. And I suppose that's again why I'm so passionate, as Hannah mentioned, around opening doors for others. The BBC wasn't somewhere I thought I would ever work. And here I am, I said 18 years later, and hopefully another a few years to come. And I'm just really passionate about kind of making that accessible to others. So yeah, without preempting questions that may come, but that's a bit about how I've got to where I am.
Thanks, Sarah. And I think what both of you show is, yeah, that you're so passionate about your jobs and you love your jobs and you enjoy it. So that really comes through. And when it comes to the BBC, I think again, Hannah was mentioning, you think of what you see, like journalists and news presenters. But the BBC is huge. Like I'm also amazed at how big it is. So do you want to just talk a little bit about I mean, because there's so many roles, we can't go through all of them. But why don't you talk a bit about your specific area? Because I know you're both in kind of recruitment, HR people. And then maybe just some other departments or areas that you guys want to let other young people know about that maybe they don't know about.
Yeah, and you are right. God, the BBC is huge and can feel overwhelming. And as Hannah said, you sometimes only know what you see. But, I think just reflecting on that, there's so many different various roles available, as you said, in HR and the various aspects of HR, finance, legal, technology, engineering, product, design, some production roles as well, and obviously journalism. And I hadn't even mentioned journalism, but I get to that point. And it literally does take thousands of people for you to get to what you see and what you hear and what you read every day. That's kind of what makes it. And I had a quick look this morning actually of just what roles are available in Cardiff at the moment, and they vary greatly. We've got apprenticeship roles available at the moment in journalism and obviously broadcast media as well. There's a reporter, Welsh language reporter available. There's a data analyst. There's a streaming specialist. So you kind of, it's as you said, we could spend all day talking of various roles, and I think that's what I would just say is, until you get in and then you kind of realize what's available to you. But the careers website is such a font of information, and even just doing a search on all the different roles, whether that's by location, or whether that's kind of by job specific. There's just so many different options that are available, and again, lots of different skills that you may not even, you might not even think were available to you. So I think, I think have a look, and that's what I would tell you, is to have a look on the career site, see what's available, and I bet it will open your eyes, because it opened my eyes this morning looking at the jobs we have available, and that's just in Cardiff.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, we always tell people to drive with their passion. I think, as you sort of picked up on, you can evidently tell the passion that Sarah and I have, and that is, for people, and a lot of our passion has been driven by our own lived experience. And I think that, it takes some sort of, I guess, vulnerability to be able to do that, to portray within our job. And actually, we do ask for people's authentic self throughout the process. But also we ask for people's like really niche passions as well. And I think about when I first joined, I remember going out to a school, and we did this exercise where we put on the table different types of job titles, and the kids had to basically determine what they thought was real and what was fake job roles in the BBC. And I always reflect back on that, because one of them was a YouTube manager, and that was always going in the fake pile. Fake. Why would BBC have a YouTube manager? But YouTube are a competitor, so actually for people who consume a lot of content on other platforms, to be able to bring those skills and niche passions into us at the BBC, we know they'll add value when we talk about, Sarah just touched on their design-based roles, whether that's user experience and UX designs, whether that's your experience of the BBC weather app, the sport app, the news app, all of those type of things. We need to know what other people are doing in order to then make our services efficient enough. And I think that for me is never rule those passions out. And that's why we need to be, on Careers Hub, be quite open-minded with the words you put in for keyword search. And the second thing I will say on that is my first ever job prior to going to university was a Christmas temp. I was 16. I was a Christmas temp in card factory. So there was literally was the smallest card shop in Merthyr, right? And I remember now, I wasn't allowed on the tills because I wasn't old enough. So all I did for 6 solid weeks was pick up the cards that people would pick up and put down because they didn't want to queue, put them in the wrong place. I'd go there and pick them up from the wrong place and put them back in their right place. I did that for 6 weeks. And I don't put that on my CV now, but the skills I learned there, I do. And I think, we speak to a lot of people and they don't consider those things as valid experiences because they're not related to the BBC in their eyes. But what I would say to people is just like, every day is an experience. It's not got to be professional experience. It can sometimes be your lived experience that can also add. But sometimes we need other people to help us with that, to be able to, sell ourselves. We're not great at doing that when it comes to CV building and those type of things. So I think that, yes, there's a plethora of roles, but sometimes we need to compromise with ourselves around not going for specific job roles, but the skills we've got will take us across a range of those.
That's such a good advice. And yeah, we, through all of the talks that we've heard over the last couple of weeks, everyone, I guess, has echoed that to say, just because, you've had a retail job or a hospitality job or a part-time job, all of that is, contributing to your experience and your
Yeah.
skills. And it is maybe just getting someone to help you link that, like you said,
Yeah.
CV.
I would say retail or customer service, if you've worked in any of those, I couldn't have stuck it out much longer in those environments, if I'm honest, because, like, talk about adaptability. You do not know from one customer to the next what they're going to come up to ask you. So when you're having to, one, try and understand what they mean by the question, then be able to give them the answer. But if you don't know what the answer is, you signpost them to someone else. That I do every day now.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to every question that every staff member is going to ask me. But honestly, when they say the customer's always right, and it's trying to actually like meet those people's expectations. So I think that anyone with retail or customer service experience, far more experience than what they probably ever thought, because that could be quite a brutal environment, to just the unknown. So I think, yeah, definitely be able to shift that across is a huge learning of mine now.
Yeah. I used to work in a pub restaurant, and it was like my first ever job, and Gary Lineker came in with his wife at the time, and I spilt a cup of tea all over him. And that I will never forget. But he was very nice. He didn't get angry, but yeah, those are some of the skills, the customer service that I've learned to this day have taken with me. So what about challenges that you guys like had to overcome, coming from working class backgrounds, first to university, all those kind of things. Like, could you talk a bit about, because it's not always positive, getting a job, the first job that you applied for. So what were some of your challenges and how did you overcome them? How do you think other people could overcome
I
those?
think for me personally, one of the main challenges was confidence. And not having anyone, I said, the first person to go to university, not knowing anybody who worked in the BBC before, so I didn't have any friends, family, or anybody who could go, this is how it is. And sometimes that is, and also when I remember first joining the BBC, I didn't really see anyone who talked like I did, and I've got a quite strong Welsh accent. You probably can hear it very well. And I remember when I first started that I kind of tried to get that away, as in I tried to speak properly. But I realized that wasn't me. I wasn't being authentically me. But it did take a long time to build the confidence to actually be more me. And I think it was again seeing more people like me and going, oh, seeing somebody senior who I thought, oh gosh, they speak with a Valley's accent, and that's okay. And again, that's why, to come back to that point, I'm so passionate about opening the doors, because you can't be who you can't see. Do you know what I mean? It's really important to see others like yourself, and to do that. I'm an executive sponsor for our working class network, something I'm really passionate about. It's really it's something, I kind of feel like I've got a lot from other people who have maybe supported me along the way, and I think that's what's helped me as well. And the advice I would give is find yourself somebody who can be that advocate for you, who you can go to, you can chat to, you can help and support you. So I appreciate some people may not have that within their families who they can go to. So find someone, whoever that person may be. It's really hard to say who that is, but you will find your people, and the people who can support you and can challenge you and contest you, and also can help with opportunities as well. And sometimes it's, I remember like when I moved from recruitment into HR in the BBC, it was only because somebody said to me, I think you'd be really good at it. I'm so grateful to that person because if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have gone for that job in HR. And here I am now. And I think sometimes that's what it takes. And I try and do that. I try and do that back. I kind of think it's like my giving back is doing that to people of going, have you seen this role? You could be really good for this. And I think that's what it takes. Is it just about being advocates for each other? And I think just learning to speak up. And that's what I feel like my giving back is, helping others who maybe don't feel as confident as, or where I was at that point. But certainly I think for me it was that confidence, that imposter syndrome, which I'll be honest, I still get to this day. When I go to certain meetings or whatever it may be, I still get that imposter syndrome. And I try and coach myself now that actually that's quite a positive thing, because it does make you stand back, take account, and actually, learn to overcome it rather than kind of push it away. Is just learn to overcome it. But I think for me it's just confidence, and that does take time, but it's about kind of, again, that people having those connections with people who you value and who can be honest with you and help you along the way.
Yeah, no, I love that advice. I think confidence is such a hard thing because it's not something you can, read about and learn about, but it is kind of diving in first and being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's a bit
And
about that so what, because I've overcome it in my time, is or had coaching on it specifically as well around. I tend to catastrophize and tend to think about the worst possible scenario. And one coach said to me, "So what?" And actually, the positive may happen. So you might do something, and actually, it could work really well. And we tend to focus on what won't work, but actually, you could apply for the job and you could get it.
yeah.
And rather than thinking, "I'm not going to get it," you could apply for the job and you could get it. So,
Mm.
trying to reframing it in your own mind as well. But you're right, it's not something confidence is something you can gain overnight, unfortunately.
No, no. Thank you, Sarah. And what about you, Hannah?
Yeah, I echo everything that Sarah said. I think one of the things for me is if I think back around challenges, also, first to go to university, my family, and I think that there was a choice that had to be made with that. Like there were sacrifices, and I think Sarah alluded to this when she first introduced herself, was around actually making that choice of studying whilst living at home, because actually you just needed to make sure that we were saving costs, that it didn't feel like, as much as a big achievement, my family were super supportive of it. I'm an only child, so I guess that um they were really happy to support where they possibly could, but also going, yeah, yeah, absolutely go for it, but we need to think about these other things. So I think, I would say there was a level of social exclusion there because I didn't live a student lifestyle. And for me, if I think back to that time, like I've got no friends from university because very much they were all, everyone was probably the only one in my course, maybe bar one other. They all had that same experience, was my experience was very different. So I do think that there is that I had to make that sacrifice at that point. But what I would say is I agree with the confidence thing, totally, and absolutely imposter syndrome. But actually, um I don't think this is due to individuals, but like I didn't dwell too much on the imposter syndrome when I joined. Obviously Sarah and I joined the BBC at very different times, and when I joined here, and to what Sarah said, like it really grounded me actually to have imposter syndrome, because I think some people go, if you've got the confidence to speak up in meetings, or you just got that natural flair to just go for those jobs that that you're good enough, like, and people say, oh, it would be, you're super lucky to be like that. I don't think it's luck. I think, it's that imposter syndrome for me has really grounded me. It's made me have to think from a different perspective. And I think that sometimes in life, you sometimes take for granted what you've had. But I think for me, the biggest thing is I've never for once ever taken for granted, because being working class, I've not had the same access to many other people, that actually I feel super appreciative of what I've got. I've never, dismissed an opportunity that I've been given in a way that, oh, that's, I'm way above that. And I think that actually that's such a strength in any organisation, but more so for BBC. Like when it comes to recruitment, we're a values driven organisation. And I think that when we speak to people now, whether they're young people looking at the start of their careers, or they, people who have had a career in something and then wanted a career change at some point, that actually they're really, really valuable skills to have. And I think that's the biggest thing I take from being working class. It's not about all of the experiences, the values that I've carried with me. And I know we speak about this quite heavily internally as well.
No, I completely understand, and yeah, it's like you said, your lived experiences and everything else can really shape you. Well, we are nearly out of time. And if anyone does have any questions for Sarah, Hannah, pop them in the chat. But before we go, I guess, like you said, BBC have loads of roles. I think there's a place for everyone at the BBC, and also all the different regions as well. We didn't get to chat too much, but obviously you guys are from BBC Wales. There's obviously BBC Scotland, BBC England. So that's such a unique organisation that has all those different pockets. So BBC apprenticeships are available. There are still some available. They are actually on the Eric app as well. So if anyone has the Eric app, you can go and have a look at the apprenticeships. Like we said, lots of different roles, lots of different regions. So if someone is applying for the BBC apprenticeship or work experience or job, how can they stand out in their CV? What would be each of your one tip for applications and standing out, because it is competitive?
Yeah, I think I've got like 100 tips I could give, and this is just sort of being here. But if I was to really condense it, be yourself and nothing else. Don't conform to what you think BBC wants of you. If we did, we'd create all the same content. Everything would look the same, like for forever into the future. That's not what we need. We need change. We need, people's individuality. But also, my top tip I'd give to anyone is think of yourself of 1 in 100. That when you say you're good at something, 99 other people might say they're good at the same thing. So what's the examples you're going to give, whether that be professional or lived experience, in order to make your unique selling point stand out? I think we can sometimes get caught up in let's use communication. Really good communicator, brilliant. But what if 99 other people say the same? What part of communication, what experience do you have in this, etc.? So those would be my 2 top tips if I did have to condense it.
Thanks, Anna.
And I think for me, just to add to those, because there's so many, I think just willingness to learn. So I think just, willingness to understand and taking time to prepare. And I think with that brings passion. So you're applying to a media organisation, make sure you've watched, listened, read some of our output, but also a competitor's outputs as well. I think just bringing that in, that you've spent some time doing that, will really add to any application that you submit.
Amazing. Okay, thank you guys. Yes, so I know that you'll have so many more tips, so we'll have to get you back on soon, just to talk about application tips. But yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully we get to see you very soon.
Fantastic. Thank you to you too, May, as well. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Have
thank
an
you for having
amazing
us.
Monday. Thank you both.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.